You want to plan a dive, but are not sure how much gas you'll need or how to figure it out. No worries, we're going to show you how not to run out of air. Let's dive in and find out. Welcome back to Tampa Bay Diving. My name is Blake and I'm a professional recreational scuba diving instructor and digital content creator. I make these videos with the sole purpose of helping you improve your dives. In today's video, I'm going to show you what you'll need to know in order to plan the right amount of gas you'll need to have a great adventure. So stick around to the end and feel free to scroll back if you need to take a screenshot or take notes. The first thing you'll need to know when planning how much gas you'll need for a dive is your SAC rate or surface air consumption rate. Your SAC rate is a measure of the rate of gas usage expressed imperially as PSI or pounds per square inch, or in the metric system as bars of pressure. The formula to get your SAC rate is a very simple process. First, you're going to take your gas consumed, divide that by your time at depth, and finally divide that by your atmospheric absolute pressure, or ATA. Now, obviously you'll have to go for a dive to get the numbers to put into that equation, but to get the most accurate SAC rate, you need to do a couple of things. When you get in the water, make a safe descent while clearing your ears, and when you get to the desired depth, become neutrally buoyant. Then you're going to take a look at your SPG and record your starting pressure. Start your timer and swim for 10 minutes at a reasonably moderate pace. If you swim too fast or too slow, then that is going to have effect on your breathing rate, which will in turn give you an inaccurate SAC rate. Also, for the most accurate results, try to maintain the same depth throughout your swim. At the end of your 10-minute swim, make a note of your pressure so you know how much PSI you used. So let's do a practice run so I can show you how you would calculate this formula. Let's say that I went down to 33 feet of salt water and my starting pressure was 3000 PSI. Staying neutrally buoyant, I swam at 33 feet for 10 minutes and my ending pressure was 2900. So I used a total of 100 PSI. Now, we have everything we need to input to our equation to determine our SAC rate. We simply take our gas used, which is 100 PSI, divide that by our time at depth, which is 10 minutes, and that equals 10. Now all we need to do is figure out our ATA. Our depth was 33 feet in salt water, so we're going to divide 33 by 33, which equals 1. But we have to add 1 for the pressure of the atmosphere at the surface, which equals 2. So we divide 10 by 2, and that gives us a SAC rate of 5. Now, whenever you're trying to determine your ATA in salt water, you're always going to divide your depth by 33 and then add 1. That 1 is for the atmosphere above the pressure of the water and is a simple 1. So if you were at 66 feet, you would divide that by 33 and add 1. If you're at 99, divide that by 33 and add 1. No matter what depth of salt water, you divide that by 33 and then add 1. Now, this is an important differential and I need you guys to be aware. If you're in freshwater and trying to determine your ATA, the process is the exact same except you're going to divide by 34 and then add 1. Now we have our SAC rate of 5 PSI per minute. The next step we need to do for our gas planning is to calculate our respiratory minute volume, or RMV. Now what we're going to do here in figuring out our RMV is we're going to take that PSI SAC rate that we just calculated and convert it to cubic feet. And both of these play a very important role in the gas planning that we're about to do together. So the formula for RMV is the volume of gas divided by the working pressure of your cylinder, and finally, that is multiplied by your SAC rate. Now, there are many different cylinders with many different working pressures, but just to keep it simple, we're going to use the standard aluminum 80. So we take 80 cubic feet divided by a working pressure of 3000 PSI, multiply that by our SAC rate of 5, and that equals 0.13. So this diver is breathing 0.13 cubic feet of gas per minute at the surface. Now, what was the whole point of doing the math and calculating out our SAC and RMV rates? Well, we can use those in gas planning to determine two very important things. Number one, how long will my cylinder last? Well, this is obviously very important to get an idea of how long you can stay at depth for. And in order to figure this out, we'll use that info we got from our previous calculations in these scenarios. We'll stay at our aluminum 80 with a working pressure of 3,000 psi. However, when planning your dive, you always want to leave some air set aside in reserve for emergencies. So a safe way to do this is to use the rule of thirds. So we'll subtract 1/3 of our 3,000 psi, which is 1,000, and we'll just plan to have 2,000 psi in our cylinder. We'll need to carry over our sack rate of 5 psi per minute, and we'll stay at our depth of 33 feet in salt water. Now, if you remember how to calculate our ATA, then we'll take 33 divided by 33 and then add 1, which gives us an absolute pressure of 2. Next, we're going to determine how much psi per minute we breathe at depth, and to do this, we're going to take our absolute pressure of 2 and multiply this by our sack rate of 5. It's very simple. 5 psi times 2 ATA equals 10. So this diver is breathing 10 psi per minute at a depth of 33 feet in salt water. So how long will our cylinder last at 33 feet of salt water? To figure that out, we divide the amount of usable gas we have, 2,000 psi, by their breathing rate of 10 psi per minute. 2,000 psi divided by 10 psi per minute equals 200 minutes. So his aluminum 80 will last him 200 minutes at 33 feet in salt water. Now, realistically, no recreational diver is going to stay down for 200 minutes. The captain's not going to be there waiting for you when you get back up. You're going to be cold and quite possibly very hungry. So just keep in mind that this is a hypothetical scenario just to help you get familiar with the math and the process. Now, another question you will need to know is, what size cylinder will I need to complete my dive? Well, in order to determine the cylinder size you need, there are 4 pieces of information that you'll need to know. Number 1, your RMV. We previously calculated this diver's RMV of 0.13 cubic feet per minute. Number 2, depth and atmospheric absolute pressure. For this dive, we'll do 99 feet. And remember to convert this to ATA. We'll take our planned depth of 99 and divide it by 33 in salt water, and then add 1 for the pressure of the surface. Remember, in salt water, we're dividing by 33, and in fresh water, we're dividing by 34. Number 3, time of dive with no deco. So for 99 feet, we'll be 20 minutes. And number 4, our rule of thirds. You'll need to take the total of the first 3 and multiply that by 3. So let's do this together. We have our RMV of 0.13 and we multiply that by our depth in ATA. And for this case, it's 4. So 0.13 times 4 equals 0.52. Now, we'll take that 0.52 and multiply that by our planned dive time of 20 minutes. So 0.52 times 20 equals 10.4. And for the final step, we need to factor in our rule of thirds. So we're going to take that 10.4 and multiply it by 3. 10.4 times 3 equals 31.2 cubic feet. Now, the rule is to always take this number and bump it up to the next highest cylinder size available. So the next highest cylinder size available would be a 40 cubic foot cylinder. Now, this is all a hypothetical situation here, and only really advanced divers who have put in copious amounts of training, practice, and diving would be able to achieve these kinds of numbers. Most advanced divers would be diving with an AL 80 at minimum. The point was just to show you how to use the formulas to calculate your numbers. So remember to be safe and use these formulas with your numbers to calculate for the best results. If you found this information helpful and would like more scuba diving content, then dive down, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and ring that dive bell. And let me know down in the comments, what dives are you planning next and what cylinders will you be using? If you have any questions, just drop them down there as well. If you're really interested in improving and would like to learn more on how to make your air last longer, then you just need to click on this video over here. I'll be back next week with another video, but until then, plan your dive and dive your plan.